So I would like to start off by having each of our panelists introduce themselves, their name, their chapter, their university, their initiation date, and their current career. So since I have Chris Carpenter first, I will go ahead and have Chris introduce himself.
Sure, thanks, Molly. So my name is Chris Carpenter. I'm a life member of the Omicron chapter at West Virginia University and a spring 2008 initiate. And I currently work as a senior information security specialist for VMware, newly acquired by Broadcom. And I handle U.S. federal compliance for our cloud services.
All right, Greg, I have you next.
Thank you, Molly, and good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Boyke. I am a life member from the Kappa chapter at the University of Georgia, where I was initiated in spring of 2009. I also currently serve on the KKPsiAA Alumni Association Board of Directors. Professionally, my job is the Director of Planning and Public Administration for the Middle Georgia Regional Commission. We provide services to local governments and communities throughout a region in central Georgia that covers about 500,000 people.
And last but not least, we have Chris Curran.
Hey everyone, good to see some familiar faces and meet some new people tonight. My name is Chris Curran, an alumni of the Beta Omicron chapter at Arizona State University. I was initiated in the spring of 2018, and I currently work in public accounting at KPMG.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I did not mention that I'm actually a spring 2006 initiate of the Kappa Beta chapter at Clemson University, and I am currently a middle school Spanish teacher in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump right into this with a big question. Question number one is, what is the membership program? Greg?
Thanks. So our mentorship program, I like to think of it as it's a starting point for how we can learn from one another. There are lots of times in our personal lives and our careers where we may be wanting to better ourselves in some form or fashion. Maybe it's that we want to learn a new skill. Maybe it's that we're looking for career advice as we make a big change or transition in our job. Maybe that's advancing within your career, your current location. Maybe it's transitioning to a completely different type of work elsewhere. There are lots of unique challenges that we all face throughout our lives as alumni of Kappa Psi. And many times we find ourselves looking for that person or that group of folks that we can lean on for advice and lean on for help. I know for me, one of the biggest challenges I had as a young person advancing in my career was going from the role of being a member of a team to leading and supervising that team. And I wish in retrospect that I had gone to my fellow brothers and said, I know some of you, somebody out there has had that challenge or has had that change before. What can you tell me for advice? And I probably would have learned a lot faster and had a more enjoyable transition if that had been the case. So whether your goal is strictly career related, whether it's maybe launching a new business or a nonprofit, any number of things, we want a mentorship program to be an opportunity for you to work on your goals and to find folks in the brotherhood who can help you get there. So mentoring can be a whole bunch of things. It can include that career advice and helping you plan out the trajectory of your career, overcoming specific obstacles or challenges that you might see along your way. Sometimes it's just meeting somebody to bounce ideas off of, or someplace where you can get that expertise to make sure that you aren't the crazy person in the room and that your ideas actually have some merit and that it's worth trying and pursuing. Our hope is that if you have that person that you can rely on and that you can seek out as a mentor, as someone who can help show you the ropes of whatever it is you're trying to accomplish as your goal, you'll be able to take greater interest in it, have greater success with it, and really be able to share that passion with your fellow brothers. Mentoring is not going to be therapy. It's not going to be counseling. And I think that's important to note there. This also isn't a job search service. There are lots of ways that you can connect with brothers if you are strictly looking for a place to find a job. And frankly, there are a few brothers who are qualified to be our therapists, but that not something that we can offer as a general service to everybody. So we're really looking for how can we meet goals? And that word I've been coming back to over and over again, goals, is I think a very important one, because we don't want this to just be, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Somebody help me figure out a direction. I think that there's a spot for that, but that's not really what we're trying to find with a mentor. A mentor is somebody who can help you overcome those specific obstacles and challenges, whether it's career related or related to your own personal growth. And that can help you be successful, whether you are making an industry change, changing your career path, changing fields, or any number of things. We want this to be as inclusive of a program as possible. And so this is open to all of our members of the KKPsiAA Alumni Association. And when we say looking for mentors and mentees, those who are learning, it's important to remember that anybody can be a mentor or a mentee. This isn't based on your age or your total body of work. This is about a skill set that you can bring to an individual person to help them be more successful, so that we can learn from one another and hopefully have brothers who are more successful in our careers and personal lives.
Wow, Greg, that was a really large amount of information that is very, very useful for what this program is going to be all about. Do either of the Chris's have anything to add before I move to question number 2? Good. Thanks, Greg. You did a great job of explaining that for us. So question number 2, this one's going to Chris Carpenter, is will the relaunched membership program function in a similar manner to the previous version? And if not, what changes are being proposed and made?
Yeah, thanks, Molly. Greg, you did such a good job with that. You should run for the board. So a little bit of background on this. We initially started reviewing the mentorship program for effectiveness in the 21 and 23 biennium on the programs committee for the Alumni Association. I started in on that subcommittee and now chair the programs committee for the association. Some of the goals we had for this restructuring. We wanted to align the program more closely with best practices in professional mentoring programs. We did a lot of research to find resources, and the one that really hit home for us and what was provided for us was from the University of Washington and their faculty and staff mentorship workbook. They talked a lot about, and I have it up here to read a couple of the headers, finding your comfort zone, reciprocating the relationship with your mentor, going through a checklist of how to establish norms and build a successful relationship with your mentee and between you and your mentor. So that informed a lot of what we put together for this. We wanted to create a program that's more effective for all parties. We want the mentors and the mentees to both get something out of this, right? To that end, we're going to actively provide some resources and support, right? We'll kind of go into this in some of the similarities and differences in the programs, but we're going to have active check-ins, active support from committee members to help foster the relationship, provide professional resources and mentorship resources as needed to help understand and build the relationship. So there's a lot more interaction. The previous program kind of set a mentor and a mentee out and said, "Here you go," paired everybody up. You understand what you're doing, great. This one, we're taking a bit more of an involved and structured role in establishing and maintaining those relationships to help make sure that we have an effective goal setting and achieving mentorship program. we wanted to not just support recent graduates, but to provide mentorship for all alumni. Something that Greg touched on is that age is not a determining factor whether you're a mentor or a mentee. Someone who's 6 years into their career and specializes in diversity, equity, and inclusion could be mentoring someone who's 30 years into their career and just starting to learn about the topic, because they understand it and work in it professionally. So, mentorship programs tend to be, I need to get into a job. I'm trying to move around, but with this very goal focused, and we're gonna emphasize that throughout this fireside chat. This is very much a goal oriented program, and we also wanted to create mentoring relationships that extend past the program. We're going to, Chris will go into this a little bit more as we talk about the structure, but there'll be a period of support from the committee, and our goal is to set up effective relationships that continue past the formal program period. So some of the similarities, an alumni focus. This is focused for fraternity alumni. Networking, getting people to know each other, meet new people, and really find the person who can most effectively help in meeting your goal. And then the committee management of the pairings, right, and the program. So there will be purposeful pairings between mentors and mentees, not just necessarily based on your professions or your regions or anything like that, but talking about communication styles and how you like to learn, right? Folks coming in as mentors, understanding what they've done in the past and how they've been successful. A lot of some of the differences and what we've changed, we've kind of gone through the goal orientation here. Got through our focus. I'm just kind of going through. I'm going through my list here to make sure I hit everything. The regular check-ins, we're going to have office hours for mentors and mentees. Those will be separate, and there'll be an opportunity to come together. So we'll have a regular opportunity to come in, provide feedback to the committee, and to raise any issues or successes or needs to resolve between mentor and mentee. We'll have regular email check-ins. We're also going to evaluate our mentors at the end of the program. We're going to have a self-evaluation and a mentee evaluation. That helps improve our pairings and how we're evaluating that, and it helps, ultimately helps successful outcomes for our mentees. And then we're going to have some exit interviews for all participants to help improve the program, help improve relationships, understand what kind of support we're providing. And for now, we're banking on forms for these pairings. But as the program matures, we want to go into interviews to really understand and help our mentees develop their goals, and then kind of bring those as examples to our mentors and kind of and kind of work those pairings to be as effective as they can.
Awesome, Chris. That's some really, really great information and a lot of details on how this program is going to be restructured and ultimately improved. So my next question is for Chris Curran. How long will the program go?
Yeah, good question. So we're going to have two different mentorship programs that run throughout the year. Each one is going to be about 4 months. One is going to run the spring, and one of them is going to run during the fall. The upcoming one that we're launching, that we're going to be launching soon, will last from the start of March till June. It'll start off with a brief orientation meeting just to kind of make sure all the mentors and mentees can get on the same page. We'll kick off with the pairings, and then we'll have monthly check-ins. As Chris mentioned, we'll have monthly check-ins to be sure that every pairing gets what they need. That way we can revise the program as we're going through. It's not one of those situations where we're starting off saying, here are the rules, we're started. And if something goes wrong, we just throw up our arms and go, well, you got to wait till the next program. We really want to be sure that this process is getting better, not just across cycles, but during cycles, so that every mentor and mentee can get the most out of this program for themselves and for their pairings.
Awesome. So I'm going to bridge into the next question, which is also for Chris Curran. How does the matching work?
Yeah, so you've probably heard this phrase a lot. You're going to hear it a lot. We're really goal focused in this program. So we're going to start with the goals of each mentee. We really want to be sure that we base that program based on their needs so they can get the most out of it, and then connect them with the strengths of the mentors. So we really, really want to focus on goals throughout this. But in addition to that, we also are focused on the communication styles of each pairing. We know that some mentors or mentees may want a lot of contact points, while a few of them may have busier lives and may want, maybe monthly meetings. And it can be a little bit frustrating if one person in the pairing wants to meet on a weekly basis, while the other person wants to meet on a monthly basis. So we want to try and nip those problems before they even start up by asking about your communication styles. That way, not only are you with somebody who can help, not only as a mentee with someone who can help them reach their goals, but they're also with someone who they connect with in that way. And we recognize that not every pairing will be perfect. Just people have different wants and needs, and it's probably going to change throughout the program. You may say, oh, I want this goal today, and you realize 2 weeks later, maybe that's not something I'm as focused on, and that's okay. Don't hesitate to reach out to us so we can help you as needed so you can get the most out of your pairing. So whether we're aiming to get best pairings possible, but if not, you will have the support to make sure that you get the most out of your program during the time you're involved in it.
All right, I got a little bit to add to that one. What are some of the examples for mentors and mentees some questions that you might ask to help improve the pairings?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go through some of the mentees. So one of the things that's really important is that your goals are clearly defined and that you understand what it is that you want to accomplish. So written out as the question, how do you feel a mentor could help you, and what do you hope that they could teach you? We want to work with you and make sure that that's specific so that you really understand what you're trying to gain from the program. How can a mentor make you feel comfortable talking with them? In a lot of cases, if not the majority, mentors and mentees may have never met before. So we want to understand that though we share a common bond within the fraternity, that goes a long way. But in helping with personal goals and professional goals, we recognize that there's something more that needs to come out of that. So we want to understand, then ask the same question of the mentor. How do you get somebody to be comfortable talking with you, right? What's your approach when you're working with someone new? And then, kind of transitioning into the mentors, asking explicitly what kind of teaching methods work best for you, right? How do you instruct someone if you're leading a team? How do you teach someone a new concept? How do you communicate goals, right? How do you put people at ease when you first work with them? And then, how would you advise someone? And I have this question written down because it's something that comes up commonly in a lot of mentorship programs. How would you advise someone who feels inadequate or less capable than they actually are, right? Because a lot of folks, when they're setting goals, and particularly some of the examples we've used are changing career paths. You can be looking at going in a new direction and feel very overwhelmed. So those are the kind of questions that we really want to get into, particularly once the program matures and we start doing direct interviews, to kind of help understand and try to align approaches the best we can.
Awesome.
And if I can add one more thing on that, I think it's really important to add that we will only be successful with these pairings and partnerships not only by having folks complete these questions and really participate in the form process, but by getting a lot of folks to do it. Because by having the greatest pool of brothers that we can pull from, that's going to be our key to success to make sure we can get the strongest pairings possible too.
Awesome. Greg, I'm coming right back to you with the next question. What are the requirements to be a mentor?
You see, I teed myself up for that one just so that I could go into how easy it is to be a mentor, you see our biggest requirements are going to be one, that you fill out the registration form, two, that you're a member of the KKPsiAA Alumni Association, which those two seem like pretty achievable things for me to do, at least. And then we'll want folks to attend an orientation meeting that we'll have around mid-February or so. Our mentors are going to need to be willing to meet at least once a month with your assigned mentees. It may be a little bit more frequent than that, depending on what works best for you as a pairing. And ideally, we want our mentors to have some understanding of how to mentor other people, how best to communicate. That's why we ask some of those questions. But don't be afraid, because you can even be mentored on how to be a mentor. So we've got lots of opportunities here, and really the barrier to entry, quite easy. Fill out the form, be a member of the AA, and then come to that orientation meeting, because that's where we're going to be able to start laying out what those norms are, what those expectations are, and then how we can actually be as successful as possible.
Awesome, Greg. Chris and Chris, do you guys have anything to add to that before I move to the next question? Okay, very good. In which case, the next question is, what are the mentor expectations? And Chris Curran, why don't you take that one away?
Sounds good. So I think the biggest thing about being a mentor is being able to help take the initiative throughout this mentorship process. As somebody who may be an expert in your area, or what your kind of the area you're mentoring in, we want to be sure that you're helping to bring in the mentee who wants to learn into that area, to make sure that they feel comfortable taking that step into an area that might be a little uncomfortable for them, and helping them to grow throughout the process. You'll also be responsible for setting, helping to establish the norms. So it's not one of those things where it's kind of unwritten rules. If you guys reach out whenever it happens, to really on day one to kind of set the norms, the frequency, the duration of meetings, to be sure that after that first pairing, after that first meeting, you all interact, it's not a one and done situation. The mentee knows, oh, I will be hearing from my mentor in a month, or I'll be hearing from my mentor next week or 2 weeks. That way, it's not just a one-time meeting, that this is something that can go on long. And we'll be there to support the mentors and the mentees as that happens. But we really want the mentors to take that initiative, to be sure that as the experts and as the people growing, they can help the mentees get where the mentees want to be throughout this program.
Awesome. Sounds like very achievable expectations. And with all the support that we're going to have from the committee, I have no doubt that we're going to see some success with this program. Next question is, how can I be a good mentor? Let's go to Chris Carpenter on that one.
Yeah. So I'm really going to hammer in on the goals part here, right? The biggest thing is to be focused on your mentee's goals. As a mentor, that's why you're doing this, right? You don't want to come in as a mentor with your own thoughts on where they need to go, right? As an example, from my own profession, someone may be an entry-level cybersecurity professional. There are 2 to 3 dozen different disciplines, right? So I don't want to come in and say, you're looking to get into cybersecurity. I think this is the certification you want to go on. I don't want to do that, right? I want to go through, understand what career path they want to take, and then help them understand what they need to be successful in doing so. What do you need to learn? What topics do you need to understand? What knowledge base do you need? What skill sets do you need? And then effective certifications, who are the employers that you need to look at, right? And really stay focused on what they want to accomplish. And kind of fostering that growth mindset and making sure that you're giving advice rather than enabling action, right? The big thing is that for this to be successful, you want to enable self-actualization, right? You want to give them the tools they need to be successful. You want them to achieve their goals. You don't want to push them to success necessarily, right? You want to check in. You want to make sure that you are addressing roadblocks as they bring them to you, and that you help them understand how to overcome those obstacles and encourage them to overcome them. But it's important that we're empowering our mentees to accomplish their goals themselves, rather than taking that upon yourself as a mentor.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Greg or Chris Curran, do you guys have anything to add to that before I move on to the other side of the relationship? Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and move on to question number 8, which are, what are the requirements to be a mentee? Greg, since you're so good with requirements, I'm calling on you for this one.
All righty. Well, the good news is that to be a mentee, it is almost as simple as to be a mentor. I think about the only way we could make it simpler is if we had a nice QR code with the link to everything. We'll work on that later. But the starting point is going to be, once again, filling out the registration form to participate in the program. Second, of course, we want you to be a member of the KKPsiAA Alumni Association. This is one of the perks of membership, and hopefully that's a way that we can help strengthen the bond within our Alumni Association too. And again, we'll want you to attend that orientation session that's in mid-February so that we can make sure that you are able to be aware of the expectations of the program, some of the ways to be successful in case you don't have the chance to listen to this entire recording tonight. So those are the basic outlines for being a mentee. Again, we'll expect that you'll want to meet with your mentor at least once a month as a minimum. If you don't want to talk to your mentor, why are you signing up for the program? But I think that that's a reasonable request. But the biggest one here, and this is really the heart of what Chris and Chris have already been talking about this night, is that we want you to have an idea of what your goals are. We want you to know what you want to get out of the program. And that'll be, the topic of several of those questions there that we give in the initial registration form that you'll fill out. And really, that's going to help us make good pairings between mentors and mentees as well, too. So again, for the mentees, it's going to be the simple form, be a member of the AA, and attend the orientation session, as well as knowing what your goals are going to be. And I'll note the orientation meeting, it's going to be very important. But certainly, if it ends up that is a bad day, we can do a makeup session for folks. Don't let that be the only barrier why you don't participate in this.
Awesome, Greg, thank you. I'm glad to hear that a date isn't necessarily going to get in the way of some really great mentor and mentee relationships. So next question is, what are the expectations for a mentee? And I'm going to bounce that one to Chris Carpenter.
Yeah, so one of the keys is being prepared. Scout motto, right? You really need to, for each meeting with your mentor, you need to have a really well-defined outcome that you want from each of the conversations, right? You should never leave a meeting with your mentor wondering what advice they gave you, right? Or wondering what your next step is. You should come in, say, I want to understand XYZ, right? I want to get a list of a list of topics that I need to learn, or a list of things that a list of questions I need to bring to our next meeting. Have a clearly defined goal for each one of those, and make sure that you give clear feedback to your mentor. One of the biggest rewards for mentors coming out of this is making a lasting impact. Several studies, including that program at the University of Washington, when they surveyed their mentors in the program, overwhelmingly, that was one of the biggest motivators for folks to volunteer as a mentor. So they can't be successful in that. And remember, this program, we want to be satisfactory and fulfilling for both sides of the relationship, right? They can only do that if you have clear feedback, right? The mentor can't adjust if you're not telling them that, you're giving me dead ends here, or you're challenging me on things when I really just want to understand, right? Those kind of conversations need to happen. The honest, I really just need you to listen right now so that you understand. And then I need you to talk to me, right? Getting at things like that. How do you, you're giving me feedback in a way that I'm not receptive to, or I need these different kinds of resources or these kinds of connections. That is one of the reasons that we have the office hours and the check-ins during the month, right? Like I said before, we recognize that we all have a bond through the fraternity, but also this is going to be their first time working with a lot of folks. So we're there to, I don't want to necessarily say a buffer, more of a hub, right? For those conversations to help guide people through them. Like I said, we have independent office hours for mentors and mentees and the opportunity to come together to discuss at the same time. That's all in confidence. And we're also there to take feedback on the program for ourselves. So make sure you're giving that to us as well, on the committee side so that we can make adjustments. And make sure you're giving your mentor the status of your goals, right? They need to know where you are in your progress. Make clear what your roadblocks are. There's a lot of self-awareness that can go into being a mentee, and really understanding what you need. So, yeah, I think that about, yeah, that's where I'll leave that.
Sounds great, Chris Carpenter. And I actually have a second question for you. It's how can I be a good mentee? Because I feel like you're connecting right into the previous question with the next question I have on the list.
Yeah, and I'll kind of hit on a few things. I'll turn it over to Greg and Chris to throw in here. And I'm glad you did that because I thought of another expectation. And it kind of goes back to what Chris said about the mentor really really driving the relationship as well. As a mentee, don't be afraid to do that too, right? If there's something more that you need, it's okay to take initiative too, right? It's very much a partnership, but we do expect the mentor, like Chris said, is the more experienced person to, especially at the beginning, to kind of take that and help folks feel more comfortable with the program and with their relationship. We've talked about concrete goals and objectives. Being willing to tell your mentor what you need from them, we talked about, but also able, right? That's the self-awareness part of it, and really understanding yourself and your needs as you go through this. And if you don't agree with the advice that your mentor is giving you, you need to tell them, right? Your experiences may be different. Ultimately, you're the judge of what advice you put into practice, but you need to make sure that like the advice that you're getting from your mentor is actionable, right? So make sure you have that clear line of communication with them as well. And ultimately, trust your mentor, be open with them, and be ready to develop and change. Part of meeting your goals and progressing is that self-reflection and understanding what you need to change to meet your goals, what you need to develop, what growth you need to experience, and that's part of the game. So I'll turn it over to Greg and Chris if you guys have anything that you want to add there.
I'll have one thing to add. So I think just a couple of things too to be a really good mentee is to just be ready to grow and get out of your comfort zone. We have great alumni in this fraternity with countless experiences, and they're experts in a lot of their fields. So be sure to trust them and be willing to listen to their feedback and perspective. And in addition to that, really try and implement what they learn, what they're telling you. Kind of like practicing your instrument. You could have the best instructor, be in the best studio, or be in the best ensemble in the country. But if you only touch your instrument once a month, you're not really going to get better. So a lot of growth will happen during these meetings, and you'll get a lot of perspective and maybe a lot of ideas you never thought of. But if you're limiting that section of growth to just that meeting, you're not going to have the best experience that you could have. So be sure that you're ready to grow in this program, to trust your mentor, and to try to implement what they say so you're growing both while talking to your mentor, but also outside of that.
Yeah, I think Chris hit the nail on the head there. One of my boss's favorite mottos or slogans sometimes is "Semper Gumbi," which means always flexible. And that's an important thing for a mentee to be willing to embrace, to stretch yourself and to look for new ways of trying new things. And in case you're wondering, can it be done? Well, I was around when we first did this mentorship program back around the 2017, 2018 timeframe. If we hadn't listened to advice from other folks and looked for ways to be flexible and grow and evolve, we wouldn't have this new relaunched program that we have today. There have been a lot of folks who were really instrumental in giving us advice on how to make this program better, how to make this more effective for folks. Chris Carpenter, one of the leaders in that regard, but so many folks who worked on those committees to help us out in that regard. So if we can do it, you can do it too.
And if I can add something real quick, just as an example of that flexibility from my own experience. So I started as a federal contractor, right, where I had very rigid requirements. And then I moved into the private sector, where now I had a whole host of business considerations with very different requirements, very different needs, and very different goals. But they were the same security requirements. So now I had to go learn how to completely reevaluate my positions when I changed careers and when I changed paths. And Greg, you gave an example earlier, something that you wished you had really reached out to somebody on. That's something where, even though I've ultimately been successful with it, that path would have been a lot different, right? So that kind of flexibility, it's not just entirely new experiences, but applying the knowledge that you have in different ways and the experiences that you have in different ways to ultimately get to success. So.
All right, and I'm so excited about this. So here's another really great question. This one's for Chris Curran. When does registration start and where can I find it?
Great. So you can find the registration right now at, we have a bit.ly link for you. So bit.ly/KKPSI Mentor 24. And you may have seen that come by a couple times in the chat or on the Facebook Live as well. And thanks, Natasha, and I believe Liz as well for putting that on this chat and then on Facebook.
Awesome. And it doesn't require a QR code yet.
Not yet. Soon. Coming soon.
And continuing with more questions for you, Chris Curran, who can I contact with questions before and during the mentorship program?
Yeah, so anytime before, we mentioned a lot that we want to be as supportive as possible before, during, and following the mentorship program, so that you have all the support you need as a mentor or a mentee to get the most you can out of this program. So at any time between now and whenever, feel free to reach out to any of us here on the call. My email will be chriscurran@ksi.org. And if Greg and Chris, if you want to say yours as well.
Yes, you can find me at boyke@kkpsi.org.
And I was muted. And mine is cacarpenter.kkpsio@gmail.com.
And we're all here for any questions you all may have throughout the program. And I especially want to take a second too to thank the rest of the committee for helping put all this stuff together. That they did a lot of work behind the scenes, so I want to be sure to recognize them throughout this. So a huge thank you to Coco, Michaela, Erica, Sarah, Oliver, Luis, Kelly, Randy, and Kyle. Thank you all for the hard work and for the support you put in so far, and all the support you'll give to the alumni and for the alumni to the mentors and the mentees as we go throughout this program.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo that for you as well, Chris. Having kind of built this, and revamped this in the previous biennium, and then moving into a chair position for the committee, you've made it very easy to hand this over, and you've really taken this by the reins, and you're doing fantastic work with this subcommittee and getting this program off the ground. So thank you for your leadership as well, and thanks for making this awesome.
Ditto to all of that.
Well
Does
directed.
anybody want to discuss the optional office hours that will be available during the program?
Yeah, I can touch on that. So so we've mentioned a lot. There's a bunch of support coming your way as a mentor or a mentee, just again to make sure you get the most out of the program as possible. So throughout the 4-month program, each month we're going to have what are known as kind of office hours, is what we're calling them. It's a great chance for one of the members of the for you to, as a mentor or mentee, to chat with someone on the subcommittee about some of the problems or questions you may be having. So that way you can discuss strategies to get the most out of the program. So for example, maybe if your pairing isn't working as well as you hoped, or maybe you reached out to your mentee and they haven't responded and it's been a month, that'd be a great place for you to come in and discuss. And we want to make sure that if there maybe is a personality conflict going on in a mentor-mentee relationship, we hope that doesn't happen, but pairings are pairings. Life kind of happens. It'll be a private place where it's just mentors and just mentees. That way there's no awkward situations where any negative feelings can happen. And it's just a really safe place for you to come in and express your thoughts, your concerns, so that, again, you can get the most out of this program so that it's very beneficial to you, whether you're a mentor or a mentee.
Yeah, and I'd like to add too, that's not necessarily a group session. If you really want to talk to somebody one-on-one during those office hours, we will absolutely break apart, so that we can have those conversations.
Excellent. Are there any other questions from the floor? Please insert those questions into the chat. Went and looked at the registrations and saw that we'd already intertwined the questions that were included with the registrations for this into the questions I had already asked. And if there are not any more questions about the launch of the mentorship program, I want to thank Greg and Chris for being here on the call tonight. I want to encourage as many brothers as possible to get involved with this mentorship program. Remember, we need people on both sides, not just mentors, but we need mentees as well. So if you wish to be a part of this KKPsiAA mentorship program, the link to follow is bit.ly/KKPsiMentor24. I hope to see a lot of you guys there, and I appreciate everybody for your participation in this call. Have a great evening and continue to strive for the highest.